Diwali is round the corner and so is Samvat 2077. The year gone by has been full of challenges and the equity market has witnessed a lot of turbulence in this period. The biggest blow to the market came from the coronavirus pandemic, which led to a global market crash that began in late February and ended in the beginning of April. What did it mean for the performance of Indian equities in Samvat 2076? Well, the Nifty has gained 5% since last Diwali. The Nifty Pharma and IT index have been the rank outperformers with gains of up to 50%. On the other hand, the Nifty Bank has underperformed with a loss of about 10%. So what expectations should investors have heading into the new year? Should investors pin their hopes on a turnaround in the Indian economy or better returns in Samvat 2077? To discuss all of this and more, I have with me the veteran of the Indian equity markets and, of course, the big bull himself, Rakesh Jhunjhunwala. Always a pleasure. Many thanks for joining us here on CNBC TV 18 and season's greetings to you. Before I talk to you about the year ahead, I wanted to understand whether your mood has changed. Since we last spoke in June, which was the time that the pandemic was raging in India, we were also in the midst of the harshest lockdown. You had said then that you were getting a tad frustrated. In light of the developments that have taken place, the reopening of the economy, movement on the reforms front that the government has undertaken, are you less frustrated today, Rakesh Jhunjhunwala?
No, I never said in June that I was frustrated. Anyway, thank you for inviting me, Shereen, and season's greetings and a happy Diwali and Happy New Year to you and to everybody. What I said that time was that I'm a tad frustrated by the slow pace of reforms in India. I was very bullish for the market even at that time. And I have no reasons. I think that pace of reform is picking up. And in the markets, I remain as bullish as ever. I was extremely bullish in June.
Yes, you're absolutely right.
And I'm extremely bullish even today.
Yes, you were bullish on the markets. You were bullish on the markets even in June, but you are right to point out that you were frustrated with the pace of reform. So let me ask you about whether the manner in which the government has responded to the COVID crisis. We've seen more agriculture reforms. We've seen labour reforms being announced. The Prime Minister hosting a roundtable with sovereign wealth funds, pension funds, trying to draw in FDI and FPI flows to India. How does the India story stack up on the reform front to you today?
See, we must remember one thing, Shereen, that it's not easy to do any reform in India. I mean, the agricultural reform, at least, if I've talked to 5 agricultural experts and 3 agricultural companies, everybody is very bullish on them. But look at the way the governments in Punjab and Haryana and Maharashtra are reacting. So, but I feel personally that the government is doing extremely good reform and is hell-bent to do the reform regardless of the political opposition, whether from within or from the opposition. So I have to see things in the context. We are in a democracy. We have to carry people with us. So I am extremely happy with the kind of reform government is doing. I think the next one, they're going to pass the bill on electricity reform in Parliament. The bill is all ready. I think that's also a game changer. And I think there is going to be a only strategic sale of PSUs. So I think I'm extremely happy now that we are catching pace in the reforms. We are making efforts to attract capital, both foreign and Indian. And we Indians must realize that in a democracy like India, it's not easy to have reform and change. And there are vested interests for everything. So rather than June, my frustration has gone, is reduced 80%.
Okay, your frustration has reduced 80% since June. But, Rakesh, since you talked about flows, given where the global economy finds itself with the accommodative monetary policies continuing across the world, bond buying programs getting enhanced, what does it mean in terms of liquidity and flows into India? When we last spoke, you were talking about how FII ownership in Nifty 50 has halved in the last 3 years. What do you believe it's going to look like going forward?
I think the money is going to come. Not slowly, not fast, but in a tsunami. Because I think India is one of the last frontiers of markets where there can be substantial growth in the world. The world is awash with liquidity. That liquidity has to find an outflow, right? And India has, I told you that ownership in India now is far lesser than it was 3 years ago. So I think there is going to be a tsunami of capital into the stock markets, both in foreign and Indian. Because I think most Indians and foreigners are still not bullish about the Indian economy. And, the signs of the economy and the reform, according to me, is going to See, this year, suppose you have 10% negative growth. I think next year we'll have 10% positive growth. So we'll reach levels of 2019-20. And remember, in 2019-20, we lost 15 days in March, right? And after that, I believe we are going to grow 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I think we may need, it's my opinion, I have the right to be wrong. I think we'll reach the double-digit figure in 5 years. We have to have God's uncertainties on our side. And I'm bullish on India more than anything else for the economic growth that lies ahead for India.
A categorical assertion that you believe that there is a tsunami of capital that will come into India, into the markets and foreign direct investment as well. But what will that then mean in terms of sectoral themes that you expect to play out, sectoral bets that you expect to play out? If we were to look at what's happened in the last few months, yeah, go ahead.
Ma'am, it's a relay race. It's a buffet. Everybody is going to join in. So you believe in the Indian story and choose your stocks. And let me tell you, I am bullish that the Indian economy will grow. And the fact is that corporate profits to GDP in India at all-time lows. So there's going to be a double whammy. Percentage of profits to GDP are going to go up and the size of the GDP is going to go up. And then I believe with low interest rates and with low exposure to equity of Indians and in general a favorable outlook towards emerging markets, and especially towards India, is going to lead to a tsunami of money in the markets. I feel India is where we were in 2003.
Okay. You know, Rakesh, you talked about how India finds itself poised at where it was in 2003. What is your hypothesis there? See, my hypothesis is that, India is going to 2003 to 2009, we grew 8 to 9%. I think next 4-5 years, we're going to get there. Second thing is, there is total disbelief in the markets. Markets showing unbelievable strength. Worldwide, I think there are going to be very low interest rates, at least for the next 3-4 years, right? There's a lot of reform that has taken place. Corporate profits to GDP are at all-time low. I think GDP is going to go up. Percentage of corporate profits to GDP is going to go up. Indian companies are, at their best efficiency as they ever have been. We have got a clean system, right? A lot of rogue entrepreneurs have been removed. So I think all these factors, I think India is going to enter a period of very high growth. So I think that, I am confident. See, I see a different India than most Indians. I see growth and prosperity coming, right? I could be wrong. And that coupled with the platforms to, garner equity into this country, both local and foreign, I think we are in a market which will surprise everybody on the upside. But Rakesh, let's talk about your big calls now. And I want to start by talking to you about Pharma, because when we last spoke, this is what you said to me on Pharma. You said it's hit 30 to 40 runs at the moment. It will hit a double century. It's been a rank outperformer. Whether it is on account of COVID, whether it is on account of the China Plus One strategy, this is a sector that clearly has seen a fair degree of interest. Do you believe that there is more steam here? I think so, ma'am. I think last time I told you 30 to 40 runs. This time I'll tell you 40 to 42 runs. So you will continue to place bets here? See, ma'am, every sector, no sector is going to have linear growth. After a rise, every sector is going to stop for some time, consolidate, and then believe and make a next move. So I am not smart enough to know that now the sector has gone up, it's going to consolidate for some time, so let me sell and buy the other sector. Then the other sector after 3 months will peak out. Then I should buy back the pharma sector. Shereen, I am not so smart to know when this will happen. I know that it's going to go up. There are going to be periods of consolidation and correction. And I don't attempt to time it so thinly. You said that you believe this market is going to surprise us. Where do you believe this surprise is going to come in from? And I'll try and link this to what you told me previously. You said some of the biggest winners will be found in the most beaten sectors. So the surprise element, Rakesh, where do you see that coming in from? In the most battered stocks. It could be metals, it could be the public sector. Give me some of the spaces. Metals, public sector, other areas of battered stocks, other areas where there has been total disbelief
in the market over years. I think that's where the highest returns may come.
Since you talked about public sector and, one of the themes that you were hoping will take off finally is the strategic disinvestment theme. In fact, I was speaking with the Economic Affairs Secretary and he was very clear that the impediments are there. They acknowledge them for companies like BPCL, Container Corporation, etc. But they still feel that they will move ahead. Do you believe that this is going to be a big theme that will be revisited this time around?
No, ma'am. See, there are two parts for the public sector. One is the strategic disinvestment, but how do you handle the other valuations? I mean, today you see HPCL, BPCL, so many stocks, maybe Cochin Shipyard. Maybe I don't want to name too many stocks, and I don't own any of them, maybe small ownership in HPCL. The question is, the one is you are going to realize value by strategic disinvestment. One, you are going to realize value when the owner treats his share better. Now, the buyback by HPCL is the first indicator that the government of India now wants to be careful and strive to work to enhance the valuation of its assets. So that is one medium by which I think the value of the public sector stocks will go up. A basic change in attitude by the government of India to treat its own assets better. Not just do things in a heavy, sell HPCL to IOC, sell REC to PFC, but do things in a more thoughtful manner which will create shareholder value. And the first indicator is the buyback by HPCL. And I don't think this has happened without the knowledge and consent at the highest levels of government. That's my guess. So I think that is one way by which public sector stocks will gain value. And second, of course, is strategic investment. And third is asset monetization. And I'm told they've promised there will be no ETFs. As far as possible, there will be no sale except strategic disinvestment, right? And they will treat their assets better and not disinvest them in a haphazard manner. I think that could lead to, re-rating and re-evolution of the public sector stocks in a massive manner. So strategic sale is the ultimate, but there are other factors which will lead to better valuations.
Well, time for us to head into a break, but don't go anywhere. We continue our conversation with Rakesh Jhunjhunwala right after this. Welcome back. You're watching our Samvat special. We're in conversation with the big bull, Rakesh Jhunjhunwala. Since you talked about beaten down stocks and beaten down sectors, let's talk about what's happening as far as real estate is concerned. Because for your theory of the revival to really fire on all cylinders, this is a sector that will have to start to perform. We're starting to see that happen, at least in some states. States like Maharashtra, for instance, on the back of the stamp duty cut, etc., we have seen movement there. Is this a sector that's looking good to you now?
See, in 2010, when the sector was blooming, they said, they remembered Mark Twain, who said the land cannot increase because you cannot manufacture land. Then people said land is an asset we should never own. So I feel the bottom is made in the real estate sector, unquestionably.
Okay. So you believe that the bottom is made and perhaps we are likely to see a recovery there. But real estate, aviation, hospitality, do you believe that these are likely to be the themes that we could play on the recovery cycle going forward?
Ma'am, I am sure 101% that if the world and India is to recover from this COVID, these sectors will recover. Right? Beyond that, I can't say anything. Because we don't have to invest looking at the next 6 months. I think the worst of the COVID and the worst of the fundamentals are behind us. So when the economies recover fully, the most battered stocks sectors will also do well. I'm sure that if there are 1,000 restaurants in India, maybe 300 will close down, but I think 500 will open.
From the manufacturing point of view, Rakesh, and since you believe that this is going to be one of those sectors where finally we are going to break out of that zone of 16% to GDP, and the aspiration is to take it to double digits and significantly higher double digits, closer to 20 to 25% share of GDP. With this whole PLI scheme across different sectors that's playing in, with the shift out of China to other countries, perhaps including India, do you believe that the manufacturing theme is going to be the theme of this decade?
Well, I think everything in India is going to be the theme of this decade. Because in manufacturing growth, services will grow naturally. Ma'am, in this country, you look at software exports, I think we'll have $20 billion of average growth in software exports, 20 to 25 billion next 3 years. 15-20 billion worth of purchasing power is going to be transmitted because of that. I think we are going to become one of the pharma kings of the world. 40% of all medicines eaten in America are made by Indians, right? The manufacturing sector, you create ease of doing business in India. You have land available. You have now easy labor laws. You have India as a large market. You have 16% rate of tax. I don't know why investment will not come. Manufacturing, agriculture, the reforms, some experts say in agriculture is equivalent to 91 for industry, right? If these sectors grow, the service sectors will by itself grow. So, every software professional, you invest, one car and one house is sold. So, everything is going to act on each other. The real estate sector is truly and fully, there is transparency, there is GST, there is so many things have been done. So everything, according to me, is going to come together. Everything remains important. And that's what is going to lead to the burst of growth.
Yes, this convergence, you believe, will lead to the burst of growth, in your words. But from a global perspective, Rakesh, what will be the triggers that you're going to be watching out for? We talked about what central banks globally are doing, and that is expected to continue, at least in the foreseeable future. But what global factors could determine or shape the course of our markets as well?
Well, I would look at the world economic growth. More importantly, I would look at inflation. See, if inflation comes, sooner or later interest rates have to go up. And logically, when you think that the amount of money that is printed and the fiscal deficits, right, inflation has to come. But look at Japan. You can't believe the debt to GDP ratio. I think the Japanese central bank owns 50% of the corporate bond market. Despite that, there is no inflation in Japan. So as long as inflation is not there in the Western world and the developed world, and interest rates are low, capital will keep flowing, right? So I think that is one thing we should look out. And I don't want some extraordinary economic growth in the world. But if you stick at 1 or 2% developed world, that's good enough for us. Beyond that, we need nothing beyond our borders.
One of the things that we spoke about was banking, and of course for India to be able to aspire to get back to the double-digit or get to the double-digit growth mark, we will need for the banking system to deliver. We've seen some surprisingly good results coming in from the banking sector so far. Do you believe that the threat of NPAs, of bad loans, etc., on account of the pandemic, has that fear, has that concern abated a tad?
I think absolutely. I think the financial sector has crossed a hump, because the reason why the valuations went down post the COVID was the fear of large-scale defaults and the need for capital in the banking system. Now it is very clear that the defaults that are now anticipated are far, far lower than what was thought about in June and July, right? So that hump is created. Of course, the actual hump has not still been crossed, but the expectation as of today is there is no problem, or the problem is far smaller than what we had anticipated. And I personally feel in the corporate side that there is not any stress. I don't think on the retail side there is any stress, much stress, or there could be stress in the SME sector. And I think India will invite so much capital, right, that I don't think that, getting capital to banks through deposits and other means is going to be difficult. So I, for one, feel that, because the first thing that analysts look when a result comes is the provisioning and the debts, and not the operating profitability. And for me as an investor, what is important is the operating profitability as much as the bad debts, because that's what's going to determine the long-term profitability of the bank. So I think I was bearish on the financial sector. I won't say bearish, I was concerned. But I think now the concerns are very low, and that hump has been crossed. and Indian banks will be able to finance any growth in this country.
Rakesh
No, I feel
Jhunjhunwala,
so,
what do you
Shereen.
have
I'm
planned
looking
now
at a future.
for the new year, for the Samvat? What are the goals that you're looking out for?
Well, I have two goals. God has given me a lot of wealth, far more than I need. Two goals. One is to improve my health, and two is to improve me as a human. So that I improve myself as a human. I think that's my biggest goal. And how I treat others, how I talk to others, how do I react. I want to be a better human.
What has this lockdown period taught you, Rakesh, personally? I mean, a lot of people have gone through this cycle of introspection, of reflection. What is this lockdown period where you've pretty much been sort of an island unto yourself, helped you discover or rediscover?
It has enhanced my... Well, it has taught me how vulnerable we are to him, how small humans are and how little is in our hands, and that we cannot go on abusing this earth beyond limitation.
Yes, that of course is an important lesson and an important takeaway, not just for us as citizens, but for policy makers as well. Rakesh Jhunjhunwala, it's always a pleasure. Appreciate you joining us here. Once again, wish you a very happy Diwali, a safe, prosperous Diwali to you and your family, your loved ones, and we look forward to being able to speak with you again.
Same to you, all viewers and all Indians. Believe in India, invest in India, you'll make money, take it from me.
You're almost sounding like the Prime Minister.
No, Shereen, I feel
pretty
so
much
bullish.
what he said yesterday.
No, it's not like the Prime. I am not anybody's. Shereen, I am telling you what I feel from my heart. You know that India is entering a period which is going to be more different or very different than what most Indians are thinking. They are not able to assess, the kind of growth India is going to see. And I reserve the right to be wrong. But I do what I've done in life. I came to the stock market. Everybody thought I'm mad. But I said, no, I will go there. So I envisage an India which is far different from what most Indians are thinking. And the markets and the companies' performances are at least initially favoring what I think. So that is, cementing my beliefs further. So I'm not saying,
well, we
and I don't understand one thing. At one time they call me Big Bull.
Yes.
Pardon? And I don't understand one thing. Sometimes people call me Big Bull, so I think I'm Harshad Mehta. Then they call me the Warren Buffett of India. So I don't know what I'm called. At one point I'm similar to Harshad Mehta. At one point I'm similar to Mr. Buffett. I don't know what I am.
What would you like to be? What would you like to be known as?
Rakesh Jhunjhunwala. I don't want to be the copycat of anybody. Yeah?
Well, they certainly did break the mold when they made you Rakesh Jhunjhunwala. One of a kind, most definitely. Always a pleasure. Appreciate you joining us here on CNBC TV 18. Many thanks for your time.
Happy Diwali to all the viewers of CNBC TV 18. The last year has been quite good for equity markets, but in general bad for many people in the economy and in the country. And we hope that next year is good, not just for the markets, but for everybody. And there's a better year ahead for everyone. I have with me Shankar Sharma and Madhu Kela, two guys who I know for more than 25 years. And because we are all passionate about markets, we have enjoyed talking through the years. And I hope that this passion will come through today. Both these guys need no introduction, and that is a big highlight because this program is only half an hour. And therefore, if we can save any time on introduction, that helps. So Madhu and Shankar, your mission today, should you choose to accept it, and you have limited choice, is that we want this program to be the biggest hit of CNBC TV 18 this year. Okay? So let me start with Shankar and start with easy softballs. Shankar, how much of your 100% net worth, financial net worth, is in equities, and how much of that is in India?
ये अब तो यार बड़ा टैक्स वाला सवाल पूछ रहे हो. इस तरह की चीजें हम बात नहीं कर सकते पब्लिकली. Okay. No, but you are also a non-resident Indian, so I'm sure you will have something which is close to mine. So India में है पैसे ठीक ठाक है. But I will be honest with you. I mean, most
percentage. I'm not interested in that percentage.
I agree. I'm talking about the percentages. So broadly, it has still been more international than in India. But I mean, that doesn't express a very strong view against India or anything of that sort. It's simply that there have been better opportunities. As a non-resident, you have those luxuries, just as you do, Samir. Baki, within the overall pie chart, you know, at least in our, or at least my personal sort of net worth part of it, it is still quite diversified because it's not only equity. So I will have a gold, and we had oil till a few weeks back, and we have fixed income as well, substantial fixed income also. So ऐसा नहीं कि खाली it's an all equity bet by any standards.
Okay, Madhu, because I'll have to keep it tight because there are some 20 questions I have. So Madhu, do you invest internationally?
No, I don't have that luxury, except that small LRS money which I have. I don't invest internationally.
You don't invest internationally. And what about equity versus debt? How much would you have in equities?
Samir bhai, most of it is equity only. We don't understand anything else. So जो समझते हैं उसी को ठीक करने की कोशिश करते हैं.
So what do you say? 80%, 100%? I'll tell you mine first if you want. So I'll have 80% in equities, 10% in gold, 10% debt, and of the 80 equity, 1/3 India, 2/3 outside India.
So you can say mine will be 80-85% equity and 10-15% fixed income or liquid, which also we keep only looking for opportunity. कभी कुछ मिल जाए loose ball, तो उस दिन cash ना create करना पड़े.
So how many stocks do you own?
I think are quite diversified, Samir bhai. Over a period of time, maybe I don't have the exact count of number of companies which I own, but it will be more than 25-30 companies.
And biggest weightage will be how much percent?
Biggest weightage will be maybe 10%, 15%, 10-12%.
And this is in listed stocks mostly, I would think. Right?
Yeah, mostly listed. But I do invest some in private companies and some in startup as well.
Okay. So generally, with this background, we all know your successes, and we'll come to a little bit of Divi, and for Shankar, we still don't know is it Himachal or global. But the question before that is, because we want to make this program a bit different, tell me, starting maybe with Shankar, some stock where you lost either 40-50%, or you saw somebody losing 40-50% and you were somehow able to sort of write on it or warn the world about it. So give some gory names, how you lost, and what was the issue? Was it debt? Was it cheating? Any stock that you may like to talk about?
Also, I mean, obviously, I think all of us have lost more than 50% in many investments throughout our lives. So,
the question is कि गलती हुई कि policy हो गया कि government का हो गया कि black swan हो गया, how?
उस तरह की चीजें नहीं हुई. See, whenever you have lost, at least whenever I have lost 50%, I have gone in it with my eyes open. So it has never happened that I thought it was going to be a great stock and it turned out to be a dog. I would have bought thinking it is, knowing it's a dog, but it will change its colors and change its stripes and it will become better and governance आ जाएगा वो जाएगा, लेकिन वो नहीं हुआ और वो stock डूब गया. So I have no, it's not like कि कोई बड़ा judgment का error हो गया था हमारा.
हमें general conversation नहीं कर रहे हैं, हमें specific चाहिए. Name.
तो specific में तो sir, for example, some infra names that we bought after 2015 कि में जब डाउन हो गए 90% डाउन के बाद हमने कहा कि चलो अब इनमें हो सकता है डेट की रिस्ट्रक्चरिंग हो जाएगी, so there is an upside, but we so understand this, you have gone into it with your eyes open कि बहुत sector third class है, खराब है, but is there an opportunity there? Because similarly we have done other trades which have worked very well, but in this case it didn't work because of certain, so to answer your question, certain policy changes happened. पहले CDR की mechanism के बाद अब ये जो OTS आ गया, but banks became very, very cagey after 2014 because of CBI and all those things. So settlement जो साल भर में होता था वो 5-5 साल नहीं होने लगे, तो कंपनियां बीच में बैठ गई. So that's okay. I mean, I have no problem in losing money of 50-70% in those trades. So but only thing is that you're not putting so much in that is going to wipe you out.
So that means how many stocks do you own when you own?
You mean overall?
Yeah, number of stocks so that we can guess the weight.
India or globally अगर मिला लें तो I think not less than 150 stocks.
So 150 stocks.
150.
That would be a good thing for our guys who think their money is made only by buying 10 stocks.
No, in fact, my experience and our experience as a firm over a lot of data and a lot of analysis is that कि यार कोई मतलब नहीं बनता 10 stock लेने का, because there is so much opportunity in this world. Why should you make it just a 10 stock portfolio? In fact, you can reduce risk and not sacrifice gains by actually, I'm not saying blindly, but smartly diversifying gives you a lot of benefits, no doubt about it. So I own, at least I think हो सकता है 125 होंगे, but it's a lot, quite a lot.
Madhu, tell me some stock where you lost and you got angry or you got upset, or maybe you just lost, because the thing is, people feel that there are only sure baggers in life, and therefore they want to put 10% in a name. And I have been trying to educate the world that there is so much uncertainty in life that people who are much more clued in, people like you and maybe me who are professional investors, even they make so many mistakes. And therefore the cost of that mistake has to be reduced by putting less per name.
So, Samir bhai, I'll give you 2-3 examples, not one, because in my life, there are a lot. I have the distinction of losing money in many more companies.
Shankar can give a specific name after.
Yeah, Shankar is much more smarter than me, so he may have lost less than what I did. Fortunately, we made much more money where we went right, so it has worked out well. So, Samir bhai, I'll give you one distinct example. When I used to be a broker working with Motilal Oswal, I put all my hard-earned money, I don't want to get name, in 2 companies. One was a private sector bank, and another was a little-known company. It was really hard-earned money. I used to be a broker, if you remember those days. So it was, by those days, we didn't have the experience of losing money. So I used to know someone very, very closely in this private sector bank, and you will not believe the stock price of this private sector bank fell by 90% with no real visible change in fundamentals. So much happened that the absolute market cap of the bank fell to 22 crores only.
So now
only 22 crores.
Also, bank?
It was Federal Bank. Let's just say, So I'm just saying that, but one of the characteristics why I lost money, because you invariably ended up trusting the stories with the promoters or the person on the other side of the table are telling you, because they will, not necessarily all of them were frauds or cheats or they wanted you to lose money. But generally, people are very optimistic when they are talking to people, specifically if you are a promoter or a senior person. Generally, you are very optimistic. The other thing that, maybe I was careless, but I should have been much, much more on top of the subject than I was in those days. So, when the results are coming, you're not even...
Second name you were giving.
So, second name, I don't want to give a name, but I just tell you it was a shipping company. This happened recently, maybe 2 years back, 3 years.
Shipping companies, I thought ये हमने 90s में छोड़ दी सब चीजें.
नहीं, it was a shipping company. Again, हमने तो छोड़ दी थी सर, पर हम वो नहीं छोड़ते हैं ना. So, we still trusted the guy. Every quarter, नहीं ये quarter हो जाएगा जी, अगले quarter हो जाएगा जी, अगले quarter हो जाएगा. But at the end of the day, I'm not necessarily blaming anyone.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is that we should go with our eyes open, do our homework properly, and before you lose big money, my experience is the writing is clear on the wall. You can see it that you are hoping against the hope.
So when the stock fell 90%, it must have first fallen, say, 50%.
Absolutely.
But you did more.
Sometimes you are in a denial. Maybe it is a small portion of your portfolio, so your mind says it doesn't matter. कुछ ना कुछ तो हो जाएगा, ठीक है, value बहुत है. But finally, those things don't work.
Okay, Shankar, you still want to give a name, or should we move on?
आ जाएगा नाम सर, आगे बढ़ो.
चलो अब let's talk about 1 or 2 successes, then we'll come to the question we have from Twitter world. So, which is your biggest success? Is it really Divi's, or there's something bigger than that, Madhu?
I think, Samir bhai, there are quite a few of them. This is, of course, the most visible. I would say we were very early investors in Siemens, very, very early investors in...
The biggest, like one big name.
Obviously, Divi is one thing which I'm really, really proud of. Forget whether I may have made more money in something else, but Divi is one thing which I'm really proud of, that we could catch it very, very early.
So when it was falling, you were personally holding it throughout?
Yes, of course.
And so in between it fell a lot, right? I think 50%.
Yeah, it did. It did fail by 75%.
75%.
One point of time, it felt like 2 years back, the Divi's market cap had fallen to 15,000 crores. And let me tell you, every pharmaceutical analyst and every expert was telling me that, how it is a big US FDA problem and why there is some integrity issue. See, this is the point. When you know the promoter, when you know the company really well, you know that it is something they will solve. And that is what keeps you, keeps you invested in those kind of tough times. And from there, it has been a 7-bagger in 2 years.
But the good thing is that you are saying today that your biggest holding is around 10%.
Yeah.
So that means you basically own only 2-3%. Rest, if the market goes up, it gives you the returns, which is what I think.
No. What I'm saying is the biggest holding is more than 10%. Let me not get into exact number here. But I am far more concentrated than what Shankar is, and that's been my style. Whichever company I like, we will put a significant portion. I put a significant portion of the money.
Okay. Shankar, one guy on Twitter asked me, he said, like Madhu is known for Divi and Rakesh Jhunjhunwala is known for Titan. Which stock do you want to be known for? This is Ritesh on Twitter asking this question.
I mean, the trades I have been proudest of, are Himachal and Global in 98, 99.
To be remembered for it. So
Yes. So, you have also made a lot of money in it, Sameer. Yeah. So the point I always come back to this is only that. The reason why I mentioned these is that कि अब hindsight में सब बोलेंगे ये था वो था, but you remember that time it had 40% FII holding, limit up, and everybody from Alliance Capital to Oppenheimer to Fidelity, everybody used to own it. Goldman Sachs put it as top Asia 5 buy list. ऐसा कुछ कोई list होता है उनका.
I maybe 15 times or so.
Yes, exactly. So the point is that my view is कि share कोई अच्छा बुरा नहीं होता, उसका time अच्छा होता है, उसका time बुरा होता है. तो हमने अच्छे टाइम में उन सब शेयर में लिया. मुझे कोई क्वाम नहीं है to say that we didn't participate. We participate fully but the point is you should know when to sell. See, you should not start believing in it. All these promoters I have known for 25 years. But the stock is a different thing altogether.
For example, I remember we sold it in Feb 2001 ki 2000? 2001.
2000, sir. 2000.
No, 2001.
Yes, sir. Sir, मैंने आपका ट्रेड लिखा. Sir, मैंने आपका ट्रेड लिखा यार.
No, I was thinking it was 1400 or something because I remember that.
Sir, 1000 रुपए पे QIP किया था. It became 2000. And I told everybody who cared to listen कि आप बेच दो यार, ये top of bull market है, ऐसा नहीं हो सकता 2 हफ्ते में शेयर डबल हो जाता है.
So one more question of mine before we go to the Twitter questions. So Shankar, how many hours have you spent or days not looking at a market? Like, what is the longest period you have passed where you didn't know what the market was doing, either Indian or US? How many hours, not or days?
In a flight, I think.
Same for you?
Same for me. I think it's much more. I think whenever I go to even London, I'll get up at 5 o'clock in the market because markets are open.
उसके बाद फिर सो सकते हैं लेकिन
उसके बाद फिर सो सकते हैं पर market तो देखना ही है.
Everybody is same. Yeah. Okay. Now let me go to questions which are on Twitter. No, but before that, for Madhu, since everybody, when I ask I want to ask questions to you guys, they ask me for Madhu से पूछना है कि Divi's का next क्या gift मिलेगा उनको, तो please give them some gift यार, Diwali gift.
Divi's का gift मिलेगा means I didn't get it.
Next idea which they all want. They all ask me to ask you this question. I'm not naming because there's so many people who ask the same question.
I wish I had the answer, Samir bhai. I think the life will be much more easier. But see, again, I'm not recommending anyone. People need to do their own homework. But it's a public knowledge that we have put a significant stake in Laurus Lab, and I'm very helpful about this company.
And overall in Pharma, how many stocks do you own then? Quite a few.
I own quite a few.
And rating in Pharma would be much of this 35.
Will be significant.
So that's a sectoral bet you take.
Yeah, it's a sectorial bet. It's a
Shankar, do you have any? We are talking about India only now because nobody's really, investing enough in US or can. So in India, do you have any sector preferences?
Sir, the sector preference is hurting us today, big time.
Which is
I mean, as in that we don't have the financials, and that is why we are having this webinar on a very, very bad day, because the laggards have rallied, which means that the ones that we own are doing very badly today. They're doing terribly today. I don't even want to look at it. अच्छा हो रहा है कि आपसे बात हो रही है, वरना तो और depression हो जाता. But the fact is that we have owned the good ones that have done very well in this entire year. We have generally avoided the ones which have been hit by the COVID. So sectoral preferences remain in India very limited in that sense.
One fellow called VVS wants to ask you, Shankar, then do you decide or Devina decides?
So this is if you're talking personal investing or fund investing.
Stock investing. Do you both have to agree?
No, so on the fund basis, not just the two of us, we have about 7 people who have to ultimately agree. We might have a veto, that's a different thing. But personal investing में sir, क्या है कि अगर 100-150 स्टॉक है ना, तो इतना टेंशन नहीं किसी चीज के ऊपर. It's make or break, first and foremost. Okay. But one thing I want to just tell people and the people watching it, कि over time, over let's say 10-12 years, the only thing I have found better in me as an investor is my ability to manage risk. तो अब मैं वो नहीं 50% डाउन वाली चीज देखने को राजी ही नहीं हूँ बॉस. वो 25-30 में तो निकल ही जाना है, चाहे वो भगवान की कंपनी क्यों ना हो. It's very simple, and I have no problem buying it back 50% higher too.
Okay, it's time for a break, and we'll be back soon. Stay right there. Welcome back. We'll resume our conversation with Shankar Sharma and Madhu Kela. Madhu, one guy called Gopal Krishna, he wants to ask, what is the agricultural opportunity in India? Is there, first of all, an agricultural opportunity? I mean, investing in agricultural sector. What is the story, if any?
See, there will be, because of the reform which has happened, Samir bhai, this sector will have a lot of opportunity because I come from a small village. So I can relate, what is the meaning of freely transporting goods from A place to B place in India. So over a period of time, it will open a lot of opportunity. Maybe we are still away from that time because, it still has to play out. So there will be opportunity in agrochemical space.
Rather than a small picture, you mean?
That's right.
It's more a macro issue.
The macro issue, and it will benefit quite a few companies, in my view.
Okay, this guy Rajesh Bheda wants to ask both of you, and I think me also in that sense, because even I can theoretically answer. The fact that Trump has lost and Biden has won, does it change anything from a stock point of view?
I think Shankar will have a better view. Let's start from him.
What do you?
So, I mean, of all the times that we have seen, in all of us, 25, 30 years, last week was amongst the trickiest, right? That preceding month was a down month, and last week was a huge up week, and yesterday was a wipeout. I mean, if you saw the screen yesterday, minus 20% was like common. I mean, it was across the board. So, in my view, markets in America at least were poised for some degree of a pullback. You can look for an excuse to say Biden won or whatever, but in my view, 50-60% one way up rally, and that includes India also, by the way. I'm not excluding that. You automatically should be prepared for a severe pullback. It might not be a 50% pullback, but definitely 10-20%. I think you are going to see that across the world because I have rarely seen markets just go one way 50-70-60% with no pullback, zero.
But now, two factors have combined. One is the vaccine and one is the change of president. So
Correct.
For vaccine, of course, today is very violent. But would you change anything for this, or you say, okay, one day affair and then life moves to the same stocks that you had or not had?
I do think some things have changed. Okay. And we were anyway very, very cautious on, let's say US in particular last couple of months. So, we had really cut back a bit on that. So yesterday thing was damaging, but not as much as what it would have happened 2 months back. I think in some part you will see the trade change back to emerging markets rather than just being a one-way US bet that we have seen for the last 10 years.
So Madhu, the fact that this bull run started with pharma because of COVID, अब अगर कोविड की प्रॉब्लम खत्म हो रही है, does it make it less interesting or it's not really connected?
I think that's a little bit of misnomer, right? It may have given a little bit of gravy in terms of 1 or 2 quarter results. The pharma companies existed much before COVID problem, and they will exist much after the COVID problem. So, I want to talk about 2 issues in case if you don't get to ask.
Yes.
A, where the interest rates are, it has become very fashionable to talk about debt-free companies and debt-free individuals. In fact, I am now looking for companies which have reasonable amount of debt, because if you don't borrow money at 6 or 7%, if you're getting a 3 or 5 year money at 6-7%, why every company is starting with saying that we have reduced our debt by these many crores? That is the first starting statement in every result, every conference call. So I am not for that at all right now. I think, if you are leveraged to some extent, it is fine. If you don't borrow money at 6-7%. And this is the biggest thing, in my opinion, that an individual like me have offers to borrow money at 6.5% against my portfolio, right? And you have so many companies offering dividend yields. So if we don't get into too much of macro analysis, I am extremely positive. Let me underline, extremely positive on select companies which are mid-cap, which are being neglected, which have seen prices much more damage than what we would have normally seen because of COVID.
These days, I'm keeping an eye on the clock also, and I think time is out, but I still have 2 good questions. They can edit us later. So one is a question from Inderpreet Sethi. Is P important anymore or not? Mr. Shankar, you can answer this. And they're talking about P, don't have ROC and all these words which these new boys are talking.
It's simple. P is important only in extreme situations. So in the middle, there is no justification that you can rationally give कि this time is good and 25 is bad, or 35 is good and 40 is bad, and वो सब नहीं होता. But if you're looking at 80, 90, 100, in general, broadly speaking, broad, मैं मोटा बोल रहा हूँ, it is considered overvalued. And on the other hand, if something is 5, it doesn't mean necessarily it is good, but you should at least start to watch it. But in the middle, there is a wide play available in which you can go totally horrifyingly wrong, doing value investing and buying cheap and selling expensive. वो सब चीजें, they don't work. Particularly in the last 10, 12 years, you've seen it has been a total disaster. And I doubt if that is going to change. So P's work only in extreme situations, not in the big body of the middle.
Madhu, similar for you, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's an indicator, it's an important indicator, but I would look at more ROE and cash flows rather than only P. So you have to look at it in conjunction. You can't look at it in an absolute basis.
The question is because now the P's of some stocks have gone up every year after year, so there must be some point at which...
अभी नहीं चलता है ना, समझ भाई, 1.5 साल से नहीं चल रहा है ना.
अच्छा जी, आशीष जलान का लास्ट क्वेश्चन है, बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग. First we'll ask Shankar Sharma. What will make you bullish on India?
We are bullish on India, yeah. We are 98% invested. 98% invested. अब और क्या मतलब थोड़े leverage लेके ले लेंगे. लेकिन we are bullish on the stocks we own, and we are bearish on the stocks that we don't own. But unfortunately today exactly those stocks have gone up, so I'm not in a good mood.
Okay. Last question for Madhu. What will make you bearish on India? From the same guy. He's asking. What factor will make you bearish just like Shankar? They think is not easily bullish.
So I am not easily bearish. He's rightly identified and you have rightly asked. So Samvat, sometimes I worry about this increasing compliance. There are so many laws which have come. There is some Benami Act, there is this act, there is GAR, there is this, that. So increasingly life should not become very difficult for entrepreneurs to operate, It should not happen कि notices के ऊपर notices आ रहे हैं. I am sure, the entire machinery is working and we are trying to make it easy to do business in India, and appropriately it will get addressed. So that is one thing which actually, worries me a little bit.
Right. Okay. I think time is out, so you guys can wish Happy Diwali to the CNBC viewers. I've already done so.
Wishing a very, very happy Diwali to Samvat Bhai, Shankar and all the viewers of CNBC. Have a fabulous year ahead. Make lots of money.
Okay, Shankar.
Thank you, Sameer. Thank you, Madhu. As always, real pleasure to catch up with you guys. And a very, very, very happy and prosperous Diwali to all the viewers of CNBC TV 18. And, invest safely, diversify carefully. Don't start thinking that you are going to start investing like Warren Buffett or Madhu Kela. Do a lot of work, but don't put more than 10%, right, Madhu, into a single stock. That's the message that you should take away in this particular episode of Sameer. And I think Sameer has got a great future anyway as an anchor. This is the second one I'm doing with him. So hey, have a great Diwali, guys.
The anchor, we were together in that. Thank you very much, everybody. Best of luck. Bye bye.
Thank you.